Hello everyone, my name is PCSpacegoon, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 ways you can deal with superior forces on the campaign map. Alright, let's get right into it with number 1. Baiting the enemy with a smaller army or single lord using ambush. This one is most useful in trying to get an enemy army out in an open field when it's hiding behind a wall in a city with a decent garrison, or if the enemy just benefits having walls greatly, i.e. they have lots of ranged units. All you need to do to make this strategy work is to set a weak army or single lord out in the open with a much larger army in ambush stance backing it up. Make sure the baiting lord or army is inside your ambushing army zone of control though, so the enemy army trips on that before getting to attack your bait. The biggest downside to this strategy is RNG. You need a lord that has an okay ambush success chance, or terrain that increases your ambush chance to a point where you're not rolling super low odds. Remember as well though that the enemy has a spotting modifier on heroes and lords, so even if you have a 100% chance, they might still spot you. Also, if an enemy faction spots you on the turn tracker, everyone else also sees you. Try to set up your ambushes more near the edge of your enemy's movement range and out of their vision, so if things go south, you can always just back off and try again next turn. Sometimes this is impossible, and in those cases, you might just need to pretend you're in Vegas and hope for the best. Now, this might sound horrible because we all know how XCOM works. But seriously, a successful ambush can wreck the enemy ridiculously hard, as they are forced onto a map where they cannot set up, and you can set up all around them, removing almost any benefit from their ranged artillery. And also, they receive a discombobulated debuff, which gives them negative 15 armor and negative 5 melee defense for 120 seconds. Winning one of these fights can give you the swing you need to either push forward or start staging a comeback. So, get them schemes ready, boys. Number 2. Manipulating enemy reinforce paths. Here's a situation that shows up on the campaign map, more and more often at higher difficulty levels. The enemy has 2 or more armies standing next to each other, and you don't feel confident in your ability to do a 1 versus many with all the enemy armies walking at you together. What do? Well, your first inclination might be to run away and cry, because the game is being mean to you. That's my personal favorite. Or you can hike up your pants and get to murdering, as our green friends like to say. There are a couple important things to take note of and take advantage of when dealing with this situation. 1. If you are attacking an enemy army or city within movement range of your army, and they have overlapping zones of control, you can move through those zones no matter how many enemy armies there are. 2. The enemy's relation to your army affects where they enter the battle map. And 3. Even when the enemy zones are not overlapping, you can still get your army into an advantageous position, just it's more difficult. With this knowledge, you can position your army in such a way that you are between the enemy armies, forcing one or more of them to enter the map extremely close to your setup zone, and far away from their friends, giving you a similar advantage to an ambush. This is particularly good if you can force the enemy army with the most artillery or range to walk point blank into your axes and swords. This tends to solve a lot of problems quickly and effectively. Also, area of effect magic is super strong in this scenario when the enemy is all bunched up and trying to get on the board. Small tactical note: once you're battling, the enemy reinforce marker is not the middle of the enemy force, but on the left-hand edge of their army as they come on the board. So make sure you're setting up accordingly to give them a big old hug. To death. You're trying to kill them. Number 3. Don't always destroy enemy armies fully. Don't do it. I know. The AI is making you mad, and nothing would please you more than stomping each one of its miserable armies to dust. But hold on. There are reasons you may not want to do this, particularly if you're currently engaged in multiple wars at once. How many lords the AI has on the map at any given time is affected by how big the AI's empire is, and how many other faction leaders they may have confederated along the way. Also, the AI will never disband a lord once they are on the map. You can use this knowledge to your advantage by just scuffing up enemy armies to the point where they are no longer combat effective, forcing them to walk home to reset. If you destroy them fully, you will give them a free teleport home, allowing them to be reconstructed immediately with the latest and greatest toys to come back and beat your face in with. Not killing the enemy fully is particularly effective when dealing with the enemy legendary lords, as it stops them from being put in charge of whatever the next army is that's coming right at you. The downsides to this are that you're likely going to get raided by lots of small armies as they run away home. They may also try to move off someplace and use their global recruit option to get more troops, so make sure you keep your eyes on where they're running to. If you have a city with no garrison, they're probably going to go run at that, so make sure you're covered. And finally, it may lead to a lot of clutter, which may trigger a primal feeling of rage deep within you that cannot be managed by anything other than wholesale murder. These things do happen. Number 4. Utilize your agents on the campaign map. This strategy is not anything new age or crazy, but it is very important. And with the removal of any cap on agents outside of the amount of build slots you have, you can spam away. The most important abilities you are going to be looking for when the enemy is at the gates are agents with Assassinate/Wound, Army Block, Assault Units, not Assault Unit, that is a separate ability, and it's not very good, and Vision. All agents give Vision, but there are some agents that have special skills which give them more map vision, and general map knowledge is extremely important. Why are these specific abilities so useful when outnumbered or outgunned? Let's take a closer look. Blocking enemy armies grants you time and allows you to use your forces more effectively through limiting the enemy's options. If you're outnumbered, wherever your army is in relation to the enemy, it had better be important. It could be healing, it could be building more or better units, or knocking heads together. But time is a resource, and you will never get it back, and that's why movement speed for you and your enemy is paramount. If you combine Army Block with the number 3 point I made, you can force the enemy to take even longer to get back home to rebuild. Assassinate/Wound is pretty straightforward. You don't want enemy agents messing with your armies or garrisons. You already have problems. You don't need to suddenly lose a turn because you get blocked, or a city because the walls got damaged or the garrison was injured. Also, being able to pick an enemy mage out of an army before a fight can change everything depending on what spells they might be wielding. Assault Units is one of those abilities that you'll need to wine and dine a little bit before you get full benefit from. So don't get discouraged if the first time you use it, it's not super impressive. You need to not only max out the blue skill tree for it, but you also want to perform it on the enemy a few times to get the bonus trait so you can start seeing real results. This seems like a lot of effort, but a hero with this ability can on a good roll half health an entire enemy army, and on an average roll whittle the enemy down over a few turns to combat ineffectiveness. This ability is particularly good when you need to defend a city and the AI is going to be besieging you for a few turns anyway. The AI also has this tendency to disband units when they get low, so you can actually fully remove units given enough time and average die rolls. Another note. This ability does not work on all large single units, so don't expect it to stop an army of rampaging dinosaurs. Number 5. It's a safety dance. For this strategy, I'm not asking you to leave your friends behind. Unless they can't dance, of course. But I am going to require you to be alright with something that might be considered a bit cheesy. Let me explain. If you are faced with an enemy stronghold, and they have an army inside you don't want leaving or building units, you can commit one lord to holding them in place indefinitely, so long as they do not receive external help. How, you ask? Well, you have your lord run up to the city and start sieging. Take off your hat and commence the safety dance outside of their walls. Of course, on their turn, the confused enemy will try to scare you off, but will not have the nerve to actually chase down a person who clearly knows something that they do not. When this inevitably happens, all you need to do is back off and return once again on your turn to wage psychological warfare anew. The enemy will be totally trapped and paralyzed by your brazen attitude and dance skills. The only way for them to break out of this is for some of their friends to show up and attack you. This is considered to be very rude, though hopefully through your dance you will have been given enough time to take care of whatever you need to, be that building or rebuilding units, or killing someone off, so you can focus on the city with your main force. And remember, as long as we abuse it, never gonna lose it, everything will work out right. Well, there you have it. 5 things you can do when faced with a superior force on the campaign map. What's that? Lightning strike? Right. Well, I imagine you won't let me off without at least mentioning it. Number 6. Lightning strike. Lightning strike is a very straightforward ability. It makes it so no one can reinforce a fight from either side. You can get it in the 2nd tier of the blue skill tree for lords. It's considered to be a skill that can either be extremely useful or a waste of a point, or many points if it's the only reason you're leveling up to the 2nd tier of the blue skill tree. How useful it is fully dependent on how deep in kimchi you get during your campaign. Thankfully, with CA making it only 1 point, if you are trying to get renowned and feared, you might as well pick it up as a 4th skill point anyway. No real harm done. Lightning Strike in the correct situation is an extremely useful tool to isolate enemy armies that are just too strong to deal with in a 1 versus many situation, or if you're trying to minimize your casualties. There are a few things to keep in mind when you go to use this skill though. 1. You can only use Lightning Strike when attacking. 2. Pay attention to how much movement you will have remaining after the fight. If you kill an enemy army, get beat up, and then can't get away from the other armies, they're just going to kill you on their turn. 3. Lightning Strike does not remove the ability for an enemy already inside of a city to assist the garrison. It does, however, still place the unprepared for Lightning Strike debuff on the enemy army, causing -5 leadership to the defenders. So if you're attacking a city with 1 army, always tick the box when available. 4. When the fight is over, it will push back all enemy forces to outside of your zone of control. This does mean if you want to continue fighting, you are going to have to expend more movement to chase the enemy armies down. Of course, in a perfect situation, it could split the enemy armies up, allowing your follow-on forces to take better fights. Alright, for real this time. 5 things you can do when faced with a superior force on the campaign map. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you want more content, check out the rest of the channel, subscribe, or catch me live over on Twitch. Link is in the description. Big shout out to Bebop Cola as well for helping me collect some of these clips. This would have been a much more painstaking process if not for him. Hope you all stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!